All right, welcome to this edition of Let's Talk About It, where my guest today is Keli Chevalier. Keli, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Ferrell.
Absolutely. Now, for those of you who may not know, Keli, your story is so compelling, and I know you share your story at different times, in different venues and platforms and things of that nature. And the things that you have been through and survived is just more than phenomenal. And I oftentimes say it, we don't go through anything without God having a reason for it.
Absolutely.
And for God allowing our circumstance to bless other people.
Absolutely.
And to let them know that they too can come through. I want to start off with your childhood.
Mm-hmm.
At the age of 7, you were actually molested.
I was by a family member. It was a cousin. And, it probably happened maybe 2 or 3 times. But I kept that a secret. And I kept that a secret up until the point when I decided I was going to open up and talk about everything that had happened in my life. So I hadn't shared this with anyone other than my therapist. Mm-hmm. She and I are the only 2 people on the planet that knew. And but I felt like if I was going to come out and tell my story, the whole story, and be honest and authentic, I was going to have to talk about the thing where it started, And I called my mother, and I said, "Look, Mom, I'm about to go public, and I'm going to share my story, and it's going to help people, and so I figure I better tell you first what had happened." And her reaction was one of anger and shock and guilt, all in about the span of 5 minutes.
Wow.
And she just went through every single, phase of grief within about 5 minutes. And, we haven't spoken of it since. We've not spoken of it since. It was just something, I had to get out, she had to hear, and then she was sort of like, "Okay, I understand, and do your thing."
Wow. So tell me this. Did your mom know about the molestation prior to you telling her at that moment?
No
or
clue.
No one knew anything?
No one knew a thing. I never told a single soul. And in the meantime, her sister, this was my cousin, so it was her sister, that was my aunt. And in the meantime, every summer, she would send me over to their house, and we'd be there together for, maybe 3 or 4 days during the summer. And of course, I didn't want to go, but I couldn't tell my mom. And her and her sister were so close, I didn't want it to be a rift in the family. And in our family, we were really tight-knit at that time. I didn't want to be the reason that our family divided. And therefore, I kept that secret forever. And it never seemed like there was an appropriate time, ever, until now. And it's like, okay, I got to say something at this point.
Right.
At least to let her know before she hears it on TV or in my book or something like that.
Right.
I owed her that much.
Yeah. Now, wow. I wanted to ask you, just so I can get a real good, clear understanding. You said the perpetrator was actually
my cousin.
Your cousin?
Yes.
Okay, who happened to be the child of the aunt?
Right.
Okay, I want to get clarity on that, making sure that we weren't saying it was the aunt.
No.
I just wanted to make sure we had clarity. But you were being sent to the aunt's house where the cousin resided, where this thing was taking place in your life. And and I've had many people on the show that talk about molestation and abuse. And one of the common threads there is the secrecy.
Yes.
And the quietness, or feeling like you can't say anything because of what it might do to the family. And then you also question yourself as to whether or not you will be believed by people as well.
And for me, it wasn't even a question. When I think back, I feel like I didn't say anything. The number one reason, and I know I already said that it was because I didn't want a rift in our family, but I think the number one reason, and as sick as it may sound, I did not want my cousin not to like me. I mean, this was family, so I was 7 years old. And when you're 7, you feel, you're thinking, I just want people to like me.
Yeah.
Like, I just want friends, and I want to be good, and I want to be funny, and you're just a kid,
Right.
And I think at that age, it was, I kept my mouth closed because I didn't want my cousin or my aunt or my mother to dislike me.
Right, right.
Simple as that.
And you know what? That's normal. We want to be liked.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's we want to be loved. We want to be cared about by everybody. That's just an innate part of who we are as human beings. And when you were talking about the innocence of a child,
Mm-hmm.
when you can't, I guess, separate one from the other, you just want to be liked. That's all you know.
That's it.
That's the innocence of a child. It's a great thing that you survived. It's a great thing that you have taken up a platform, that you can actually have these types of discussions, and now you've set yourself free. And that's a beautiful thing. And I know that wasn't easy, setting yourself free. It had to be,
No.
I mean, it took years. And you say when you told your mom, you and your mom had one conversation about it, and the door was never opened again for more dialogue. That was it.
That was it.
I have to ask, how do you feel about that conversation happening once?
I'm fine with that.
Okay.
It is really not something I care to bring up over and over again
Yeah.
in my family. Even when I do public speaking engagements, I have yet to bring it up. I don't bring that part up.
Okay.
It's okay. I mean, you're the first to hear about it here, so your
Yeah.
viewers are kind of getting something exclusive.
Wow.
Because it was early in my life,
Yeah.
and it probably affected my life.
Mhm.
At least my therapist says it has, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I think that there's more. There's more. There was more to come. I actually had a very happy childhood,
Okay.
and my parents were awesome teachers, awesome mentors. They were there for me.
Mhm.
So I don't have that tragic story.
Yeah.
And so I actually left my home when I went to college thinking that I was the smartest girl in the world.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I got to Dr. Thurston's organic chem class that I realized I was barely average. But I just,
A rude awakening. Huh?
exactly. I mean, you know, it wasn't until then. So my childhood and adolescence and everything was normal.
Mhm.
My parents were divorced, but my father was always there, and my mother was encouraging. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I don't feel that the trauma part of my life really began with that. It happened,
Yeah.
but it didn't affect me the way that you hear a lot from other people, and that could be many reasons. Maybe because it only happened a few times,
Mhm.
or maybe I compartmentalized it.
Yeah.
But for whatever reason, I don't intend to drag my family through that emotion right now because I'm over it.
And wow, and that's a beautiful thing to say that you're over it.
Mm-hmm.
Because when you're over it, then you can really move on with your life
Exactly.
and move into your destiny. You know, and speaking of moving on, I want to move into your life a little bit further. I think the year was 2003.
Yes. Yeah.
And in 2003, you suffered something very similar to what you suffered when you were 7,
Yes.
when you were actually raped by someone in the military.
Mm-hmm.
And you were actually in the military yourself.
Absolutely.
So you're raped by another soldier.
Yes, another soldier. And it's really strange if you can just juxtapose the two incidences where you have a family member and you have a fellow soldier.
Mm-hmm.
The soldier is still like family. You still have a trust there.
Yeah.
And the thing about rape is that it literally strips you of your identity. So
Mhm.
everything that you felt and thought about yourself, you thought you were beautiful, you thought you were smart, you thought you were, powerful or
Mhm.
strong or whatever it was that you thought about yourself, rape has a way of creeping in and stripping you of all of that and
Right.
making you question who you are.
Yeah.
Because you start saying, how did this happen to me?
Mhm.
What did I do to deserve this?
Yeah.
Who am I? Why me? And you start asking all these questions, and they lead you down the road of hurt and despair and mistrust, and it's a deep well that you find yourself in, and you literally have to pick yourself up and climb your way out
Right.
to get through all of that.
Right.
And I try to encourage the women that I talk to do just that, to just get up, get dressed, and get out, and do that every single day until you start to feel better.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I want us to talk more about that experience and what it's been like for you coming out of that experience when we come back in just a moment with more of Let's Talk About It. You guys stick around. right, welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It with my wonderful guest, Keli Chevalier. I have a hard time saying that last name.
Chevalier.
But Chevalier. You know, I'm going to get it right before it's all said and done. Now, Keli, when we left off, we were talking about basically what it felt like going through the rape. Not only, well, the abuse at 7, and secondly, the rape while you were serving for the United States Army.
Yes.
In Iraq in 2003. For those of you who are just picking up on the show, in 2003, while she was serving in the Iraq War, she was actually raped by another soldier in her camp. And we were talking about what that felt like and the feelings of, I'm sure you experienced feeling inadequate, or like you were not good enough, or what is it with me, why me, like you said, you know, and I think those are all questions that any normal person would ask. Why me, or why did God allow this to happen to me? What did I do to deserve this? And oftentimes we didn't do anything to deserve it.
No, and you know what? Right after it happened, I asked that question. I was like, God, why me? Because I've been faithful, and I go to church, and I read my Bible. And I just said, what in the world did I do? Did I look at somebody wrong? And it goes back to what I said about how you question your identity. You question everything. You question God. You question everything after something like that. But it was, you know, a few years down the road that God put it all together for me. And it was like, I don't understand why, you know, some people can articulate what has happened to them in a way that helps others. But if you look at people like, you know, Oprah Winfrey, who, you know, she had she was molested as a child. Yes. You look at Tyler Perry, also was abused. You know, there are certain people in the world that have very traumatic childhoods, or very traumatic things happen to them, but then they're able to channel that energy into something so powerful that it affects millions in a positive way. And I feel like that's exactly what God was telling me, was like, I didn't put you through all of these things for you to wither and die and go away. You have a bigger and a stronger purpose, and you're going to use that purpose for my will. And that's exactly what I did. I got up, got dressed, got out, and that's what I do today, is go out there and tell people my story and share with them that you don't have to be the quintessential soldier with PTSD. You know, you don't have to be the one that's shooting people or on drugs or homeless. You don't have to be one of those statistics. You could be one of the 3 million veteran business owners that are out there. Or you could be one of those veterans that's part of the $1.4 trillion that's spent every day in the U.S. So you can be a positive veteran with PTSD. That's the story I'm trying to tell.
So from your experience in the military, you began an organization? I
did. It's called Trauma to Triumph. And I'm going to tell you the truth.
Tell me the truth.
You know, I've got to be authentic. The truth is, I didn't want to do it. And there are many days I don't want to do it. But I'll tell you what, I retired last year, and my plan was I'm going to sleep late till about 7:30 in the morning.
I'm sorry, but I don't mean to cut you off, but did you say 7 to 7:30 is sleeping late?
Yes, 7:30 is sleeping late. Well, when you've been in the military almost 20 years, you know, 7:30 is pretty awesome. Right? And I said, you know what, I'm going to have German chocolate cake for breakfast, and I'm gonna eat chocolate cake every day for breakfast. I'm gonna paint my nails green. I'm gonna like pierce my nose. I'm just gonna do all kinds of things that the military wouldn't let me do. If you think about it, I spent nearly 20 years in a uniform that was specifically designed to make me invisible. Which is one reason why pink is my color.
You stand out now.
Thank you. I gotta let people know I'm a woman. This is a woman over here.
This
very girly. And so I didn't want to do it. But on that next day after my retirement party, I was lying in bed and I was like, okay, I'm flipping through. I'm looking at all the talk shows and I'm like, this is pretty boring, you know? And God was like, get up, girl. I didn't put you through all this for you to sit here and watch, you know, Wendy Williams, like, get up.
Right.
And I started looking for ways to reach people, and that's when I started my radio show. It's called Sister Seriously. And I started bringing on, you know, people with traumatic experiences, and I had them talk about what they went through and how they changed it.
Yeah.
I talked to, women CEOs and, female business owners and that sort of thing. And within our first 6 months on the air, we were reaching 35,000 listeners. And it was doing really well. But the problem was it came to the point where you had to get more sponsorship.
Okay.
And I said, well, I can either take the sponsorship and we can put this back into the radio show where I don't really get any reciprocity.
Right,
you put
right.
it
And you
out
want
there,
that. Yeah,
right,
absolutely.
but you don't get anything back. And I said, or I can start something where I can see the growth. I can see the transformation of women. And that's how Trauma to Triumph was born.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Through your trauma and through your triumph. Trauma to Triumph
That's
was
right.
born, which is the organization that you have put together to bless other people that have been through your experience.
That's right.
I think that is fantastic. And like I always say, that's the beauty of going through something. When you're able to turn that thing around and bless others through your experience. And obviously, you've done that.
And it's been a wonderful experience too. I've met women who have heard me speak and come back later and said, I left him. Like, I finally left him.
Yeah.
I got out the house today and I went to a baseball game or I went to a football game.
Yeah.
Things that they had never done since their traumatic experience.
Right.
And I'm proud of that. It's something I can be proud of. It's something I can look on and I can say, you know what? I was a small part of that. God used me in a way.
Yeah.
And I love that feeling, when God uses you in a way
Absolutely.
that really helps people
Absolutely.
and something significant. It's like a drug and you want to do it
Again
again and again,
yeah.
right? But don't get me wrong. Sometimes I get down too. Sometimes, I still have my struggles, and that's why I surround myself with good friends, strong friends, Christian friends.
Yeah.
Women that are going to be there to lift me up. And I don't need a bunch of them.
Yeah, right. Just need a couple.
I need just a couple.
One or two good ones.
One on each arm, we're good. And they keep me going and remind me from time to time that this is we're on the right road.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. In anything that we do, we need support.
Right.
We need somebody to lean on. It's not always roses when we're walking down the path that God has set before us. It is never always roses. Now, we talked about trauma and triumph a minute ago. There's another thing that happened in your life that was extremely traumatic with the bombing that took place, that actually you were damaged in that explosion, and you were not able to walk for a period of time, and that happened in the military as well.
Right. I deployed my first deployment to Iraq was in 2003, and I came back and deployed to Okinawa, Japan, and I had a nervous breakdown. And I really hadn't dealt with some of my, the abuse that had happened in the past in my first marriage. I hadn't really dealt with the rape, and I crumbled.
Yeah.
And I ended up leaving the active duty military to join the reserve as sort of a way to escape going back to Iraq. At the time, 2007 was it was just a ramp up. I mean, we sent lots of military to Iraq in 2007, and I was trying to avoid going back there.
Okay.
And so I decided I'd join the reserves, and not only join the reserves, but a reserve unit in Houston that didn't even have a deployment mission.
So you were making sure you were covered.
I was making sure. I was like, I am not going back.
Wow. Wait. You know what? Before you go any further, we got to pause for the cause. We're going to be back in just a moment, but we're going to hear the rest of Kelly's story. So you guys stick around. This is going to be interesting to see how this all turned around for you. All right, we'll be back in just a second. All right, welcome back to this edition of Let's Talk About It with my guest, Keli Chevalier.
Chevalier.
Hey, y'all know I mess up every time.
You gotta say it like you're in New Orleans.
Oh, the Chevalier.
Oh yeah.
I may have to say it like 100 more times before I get this thing right. But before you leave today, I'm gonna have Chevalier.
I know you will. You got it.
That was it.
You got it.
That is right there. Now, where we left off, we were talking about you attempting to avoid being redeployed in Iraq.
Right.
And so
or Afghanistan. I didn't know
anything. You was
I was just running. I was like, please, Lord, just send me home.
Somewhere, okay?
Right, but I didn't want to give up all the years of service I had because, if you leave the military before you're 20, you pretty much walk away with nothing. It doesn't matter how many times you've deployed or been shot at or whatever. If you walk away under 20, you don't have a pension. You know what I mean?
Okay.
You just you get some VA benefits.
Yeah.
You might be able to get a VA loan or something like that. Their GI Bill, that sort of thing. But you don't have a paycheck coming in unless you retire. So you don't get a paycheck. Okay. And I wasn't about to throw away all the years of service. Mm-hmm. And another thing is you can't let experiences or personalities stop you from reaching your goal. Yeah. And my goal when I came in the military was to make a career out of it and retire. And I had known people that had retired from the military. They got another job. They retired from that. They got VA. They got Social Security.
My sister is
65 years old. They're driving Harleys and BMWs and taking trips. I wanted that, So I wasn't gonna let anybody stop me. So I knew that if I stayed on active duty, something was gonna stop me. That's where I was mentally. Yeah. I felt like if I had to do another deployment, that was probably going to be the end of me. Okay. So I was running, and I went to the reserves thinking, there's no way they're going to find me here. Oh, man, I thought I was safe. Mm-hmm. And I was there in the reserve unit for about a year, and they said, hey, Chevalier, yeah, we got a mission for you. We're going to send you to Iraq. And I was like, what? Huh? I thought we didn't have a wartime mission. Oh, no, that changed.
Is that right?
Well, yeah. Because
and off you went to Iraq?
Off I went to Iraq, yeah. And so I left my little boy. I think he was about 1 or 2 year old at the time. Mm-hmm. I left him with my husband and my older son with my husband. And I deployed again to Iraq for the second time, but my third tour. But second time to Iraq. My first tour was in Kosovo, Bosnia. War. Okay. But so I left and I went. And when I got there, things were different. The infrastructure was much better. There was, showers. Of course, I had to hike about a half mile to get to a shower or to a bathroom in the morning, which was another interesting story that I have to tell you off camera. Okay. But it was a hike there. But the thing is, on my third day there was Bloody Thursday. That was the bloodiest day in Iraqi history. There were, I think it was over 12 coordinated bombings on that day. Over 500 people were killed, many more were injured. And a few of these bombs happened right where I was working, just right outside the fence. Uh-huh. And that was sort of my reintroduction to Iraq. Wow. And, Now,
that had to be traumatic for you. How was that? When you see the bloodshed and you see the different violence that goes on in any particular country, but you had firsthand experience. How did that affect you mentally and emotionally?
It gives you, it gave me a little paranoia, high anxiety, but then also depression. Yeah. And I think it's because you see children getting killed, and that cuts to the core a little bit, Yeah. You know that you're in war, and you know that, there's just, people are going to get killed. It's war. Yeah. But when you see children hurt, you feel like, oh my God, what am I doing? I'm away from my own kids. Mm-hmm. Why am I doing this? Am I just doing it for that retirement check? Is that retirement check worth, my children's safety? All these things are going through your mind. Yeah. Right. And that day, the bloodiest Thursday, when those bombs started falling, I, again, underneath the desk, was just, what is going on? And I reached up. There was a phone on top of the desk. I reached up from under the desk, grabbed the phone. I called my mama. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, Mom, I don't know what they're going to say on the news in the morning, but I'm alive. I'm okay. Everything is good. And hearing her voice made me feel better. Oh, that's great. And I went on with my day. And there were bombs every week. Every week there was something getting bombed. Wow. and it was right before I left Iraq, and a bus bomb exploded.
That was my next question.
Yes.
How long were you there before this incident took place?
It was about 9 months.
You were there for 9 months before,
Right.
so that it didn't happen to you on Bloody
No,
Thursday or
that was
whatever.
just my introduction.
Your introduction,
Yes.
but then so many months later is
Right.
when the bomb exploded and you happened to become a victim at that time.
Right.
And it was a 7-year-old kid, right? Wasn't it?
No,
Or was
that was a different
That was a whole
actually
different-
happened. Yeah, I'll tell you that story later too. But
Okay.
there was a bus bomb that exploded right outside our base again, and I was just standing in front of a wall locker. And the wall locker fell on me and hurt my back. That's all it was.
That's all it was.
Yeah, that's all it was. And I was born with scoliosis.
Okay.
So that's a curvature of the spine.
Yeah.
And now I was already, suffering with some PTSD.
Okay.
And now I had a minor back injury, but still was going to require some surgery.
Uh-huh.
And so I left Iraq, and the doctors decided to go ahead and fuse my entire spine, thereby correcting the scoliosis and the injured vertebrae. So
Okay.
at that point, it was when it was learning to walk again,
Yeah.
because after a spinal fusion, you're starting over again,
Yeah.
But the therapists were awesome, and it took some time. But it was during that time that I really had to have a conversation with God. It was
Mhm.
really during that time that I had to say, okay, what are we trying to do here?
Yeah.
Are you trying to break me down and build me up again?
Mhm.
What's going on, right? And that kind of became a way of life for me, having that conversation with God.
Right.
So now I wake up 4 a.m. every morning and have that conversation. 4 a.m. I get my instructions, just like I was in the military.
Is that right?
4 a.m.
Come on now.
I get my orders, and I go about my day doing exactly what God told me to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So God speaks to you
Yes.
at that hour. 4
4 a.m. Sometimes 4:02.
Right, give or take. Now you know she's military. They don't leave a second or a moment. I think they 4:02. We can't just stick with the 4 o'clock or 4 a.m. 4:02.
Sometimes 4:02.
What the?
Sometimes I'm late to the meeting.
Well, they say he's always on time.
That's right. He's always on time.
So if it's 4:02, 4:03, 4:05, he's on time.
That's right.
And you get your orders for the day.
I get my orders for the day.
So now you've actually turned all of this into a book.
I have.
That you have all of your experiences is now in a book.
Yes.
And what motivated you to write the book?
Actually, the book had been rolling around in my head for probably 15 or more years.
Okay.
I had been thinking about writing about, things that had been going on in my life
Mhm.
and how God spoke to me and why did these things. It was basically
Right.
answering the questions that I had in my mind,
Okay.
and putting the answers down on paper.
Mm-hmm.
But when I started speaking, I said, okay, I really need to finish this book. I really need to put this down. And I'm telling you, one weekend, all I did was put sticky notes up on the board that
Uh-huh.
I mapped out everything that I wanted to write about
Okay.
with little sticky notes on the board. And one weekend, that book was done. Yeah.
In one weekend, your
In one
entire
weekend.
book was written.
The whole book was done in a weekend. I closed the doors, wouldn't answer the phone. My friends will tell you. They were like calling people, where is she? Is she okay? Is she alive?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to really cut myself off from the world. And it was actually 3 days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday,
Uh-huh.
that I wrote that book, that one weekend. And I sent it off to the publisher.
Just like that.
Just like that. Just like that.
Wow. Well, the interesting thing is when you say that, you say it was written in 3 days, but the book has actually been written throughout your lifetime.
Absolutely.
And it was all compiled within a 3-day time
Absolutely.
period to make it come to pass so that the
Mhm.
world can see everything that you had been through.
That's right.
Man, we're going to talk a little bit more in just a moment when we come back. Yeah, you are very interesting. We're going to be back in just a moment with more. Let's talk about it with my wonderful guest, Keli Chevalier. All right, we left off talking about everything that Keli has been through. This is truly a story of triumph over tragedy. When you're able to take the traumatic things in your life and turn them around for your good, and not only for your good, but for the good of others. They're blessed because of the story that you're willing to share. And now it's been compiled in a book.
Yeah.
So you guys can find out more about this awesome book and the life of Keli and what she's experienced from an early age, then going into the military and what she's experienced and life after. Keli, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of Let's Talk About It. For more information on yourself, Keli, how might the audience get in touch with you if someone wants to get in touch with Keli?
First of all, I am so easy to reach. You can Google Keli Chevalier and a ton of things will pop up. You can go to Keli, which is Keli, at Keli Chevalier, Chevalier. It's real tough, right? So it's Keli at KeliChevalier.com. That's my email address. You can go to KeliChevalier.com. That's the website. And you can also go to LadyVetsRock.com. And
Ladies
that's where
That Rock.
you're going to find a lot of information about Trauma to Triumph, which is the nonprofit that I founded, and how we help women with post-traumatic stress disorder. Also, you can purchase the book there too. At LadyVetsRock.com, you can purchase the book. It's called Get Up, Get Dressed, and Get Out. And we also have an awesome event coming up in November that I'd really like people to come out and watch. It's the PT for PTSD event.
Okay.
And it's where we get high school ROTC cadets to come out and they compete, battle it out for a trophy.
Okay.
We put out some good information, vendors, and it is a lot of fun. And that's going to be Veterans Weekend. So it's November the 8th. November the 8th.
November 8th, Veterans Weekend.
Yes.
Wow. Well, you know what? With all that information, they can't help but to get in touch with you some kind of way.
Just Google me.
Just Google her. Just Google me. Now, you know when a person is Googleable, then they somebody. Keli, thank you so much for joining me on this edition of
Thanks
Let's
so
Talk
much,
About
Ferrell.
It. I certainly
Appreciate it.
appreciate it. Now, for more information on this show, you can reach us at Let's Talk About It 12TV at gmail.com. That's Let's Talk About It 12TV at gmail.com. We also have a YouTube channel. Just simply type in Ferrell Phelps and Let's Talk About It, and you can see some of our past shows there, as well as current shows that will be coming up. Thank you so much for joining me on this edition. Until next time, we'll see you then.
As long as you don't try to step beyond this point, I have no problem with you. As long as you remain in your place, I have no problem with you. As long as you stay under me, I have no problem with you. But you bet not step forward. Oh, I wish I had. See, y'all missing it. Y'all missing it. You see, that's the thing about it is that folk are happy as long as you are where you are.